Yep. Thanks, guys. Hello, everyone. My name is Veronica. I'm from Dubbo. I'm coming to you from Dubbo today. I am an assistant principal with the Itinerant Support Hearing Team out here. Welcome to our EDSA webinar for today. It's the second one in a series, and it's a follow-up to Dania Benson's webinar that she did about phonemic awareness and phonological awareness, the differences in phonics and phonemic awareness and why that matters. So during that webinar, Dania referred to a program called the SSP or Speech Sounds Pics program. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that today and share with you how I use that program with my deaf and hard of hearing kids and how I integrate phonemic awareness into that program. So in a nutshell, the program is Speech Sounds Pics approach. It's a strategy, if you like, to teaching literacy, and it covers what they call the big six, so oral language, phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, comprehension, and vocab. And it includes every speech sound and maps a speech sound with a sound pic. So SSP uses the terminology sound pic, which you and I might know as a letter or combination of letters to represent a specific sound. So in English, as we know, as teachers of the deaf, we're taught the IPA, and that our spoken Australian English has 44 different sounds, 44 different phonemes. And what SSP does is they provide a visual prompt as part of their program. So for every one of those 44 phonemes, we have a little monster. So this little pink guy here, he's the monster for S. And then we have our little ant-looking monster. He's an at. He's for the at sound. And then our green guy, he represents a T sound. So obviously, English is first and foremost a spoken language, and we communicate via conversation first, even before we learn to read and write. So learning the sounds sounds form words and then phrases into sentences and stories. So for our young kids, being aware of the sounds and using them for conversation comes before print, whereas most phonics or phonemic awareness programs that are in schools are actually print to speech approaches. So they start with a letter written on a page and then teach that that letter is representing a particular sound. This approach works the other way. It starts with the sound and then teaches the different combinations of letters that can represent each of those sounds. So when we speak, we say words that are made up of smaller speech sounds, and we use combinations to represent those sounds in print. And the letter names like A, B, C, they're just labels. And the speech sounds that they represent are what matters most. So in the sentence here in the red boxes, we've got the owl is reading. So we can break the individual sounds down. Owl is reading. So the focus on those sounds and being able to hear those individual sounds is phonemic awareness. Okay, so SSP attaches a monster, like I said, and they have this really great resource. I love it to pieces. It's a speech cloud keyring or spelling cloud keyring. So for every one of those 44 sounds, there's a card that has a cloud with every spelling option for that sound. So for example, this one here is the T sound, and every option is represented. So we've got our little monster here, a little green monster is our T monster. We've got a picture representation, a picture prompt, and the most common way to represent that letter, or that sound, sorry, in print is with the letter T. So for every other option though, in the cloud, they put it into an example. So we've got a double T could represent a T sound, a BT if you pronounce this as debt, just the single T, a TE for paste, a TH for Thomas, a PT for pterodactyl, an ED for jumped, and a TTE for pirouette. So this little resource goes through every single one of those 44 phonemes, including, if you can see this little red one here, that's a card representing a schwa. So as a teacher of the deaf, you know there a lot of vowel sounds can be sound like a schwa in words, like that unstressed vowel sound. So they even have a card, to represent that. So the clouds are based on the speech sounds, not letters. And as I said, there's a monster for each of those sounds, for each of those phonemes. The phase one of the program is phonemic awareness only. So there's no phonics, no speech sounds, no letters. It's just phonemic awareness. So there's not a written letter in sight. And it involves learning about duck hands, lines and numbers, which Dania talked about in hers. So she had each line representing a sound in the word. So we're not talking about numbers of letters in a word, we're talking about a sound. So here in the word numbers, for example, we've got n, a, m, b, z. So even though this the word numbers has two letters for ER, that together is a sound, so it represents one phoneme, which is why there's the number 5 there, one phoneme. I have included a link to a little video that goes through the duck hand lines and numbers process at the end of the presentation. So if you pause the presentation at the end, you'll be able to write down the web address and go and have a look for yourselves at little videos that show you this. So as I said, the lady that put this program together is Emma Lewis, and like Dania said in her presentation, she's known as the reading whisperer or Miss Emma, and she's originally from the UK but lived in Queensland for a long time, and this program was first released in schools in Queensland, and it's slowly travelling around the place so more schools are aware of it. I know here in Dubbo we have 2 schools that use this as part of their literacy program, and I know there's more in the Hunter Valley, there's some down at Wollongong. So if you're out and about in schools and hear about it, it's really worthwhile to sit in on a classroom using SSP if you can and take a look at it. So like I said, SSP involves listening and learning to the different sounds and then being able to blend and segment those sounds. So like fish, sh has the 3 sounds, and just being able to write the lines, 1, 2, 3 lines, that shows us that kids can hear those smaller parts in the words. And then if they're up to writing the numbers, you could go 1, 2, 3. But we're not at letters yet. There's no letters here at all. This is just a quote from Emma. So that children need to be able to hear the smaller parts in words and know how many sound pics or letters are needed. So learning to speak using duck hands. So duck hands are really important because they allow our brains to more quickly and easily split words into speech sounds and to make the connection between the speech sounds and the sound pics. They just give a tactile link, and a lot of phonics programs have a tactile link. So Jolly Phonics, for example, they have their little actions for each of their sounds. So with this, they don't have a different tactile thing for each sound. It's just duck hands. So you can sit there yourself, open your hand like a duck mouth, and when you close it, when your fingertips touch your thumb, that's one sound. So you open it again and close it, that's another, open it again, and close it. So for a word that has 3 sounds, we've got open, close, open, close, open, close. And we move the duck hands from left to right for the kids. So as I'm looking at, I'm right-handed, so I have my hand open, close it onto my thumbs, then move it slightly to my left, open again, close it, move it again, open and close it. So if I'm moving it from my right-hand side across to my left, when the kids see it, it's from their left to right. So that left to right action further strengthens the follow the sound, say the words technique. And it gives the brain a way to track speech sounds from left to right, even before kids see any print, because we read Australian English from left to right. So it gives them that tactile link, even though we're still working on phonemes and we haven't even got to print yet. Okay, just moving on. So we're going to do a couple of examples, and with phonemic awareness, because it doesn't rely on print, you can do it anywhere. You can do it in the car, while you're out walking. There are no letters involved, it's just listening. So this little brown picture here, say the word. Hopefully you all said ant. How many speech sounds can you hear? Okay, hopefully you've said 3. And what are those speech sounds? Okay, so I've got a, n, t, ant. Kids who can do this find reading and especially spelling far easier. If they can't, if you ask, show this a picture of an ant, and you ask a child, what speech sounds can you hear when you say the word ant? If they can't go ant, just tell them it's ant. It's okay to tell them. The more you tell them, the more they'll be exposed to it, and then eventually they'll be able to hear those sounds themselves. So let's try it again. So we've got this little picture here, a tap. How many speech sounds can you hear? Okay, hopefully again you said 3. And what are they? Okay, so we've got app, tap. So as we're sounding out these words, you can use your duck hands from left to right to emphasize that there are 3 sounds. Then you can, on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper, you could draw your lines, 1, 2, 3 for each of the sounds, put your 1, 2, 3 underneath. And we're still not involving print yet. This is all just listening. So it's a great way to assess speech perception. Can our deaf and hard of hearing kids hear ant and segment that into ant or app? Or this little blue itten pin or itten tin. Something that I've used with my profoundly deaf kids, I've used this approach in conjunction with cued articulation. For those of you that remember Jane Passey's approach to cued articulation, and again I've put a link at the end on the last slide if you wanted to have a look at that. She's actually put all of her cued articulation hand shapes on YouTube, on a little YouTube video, which is very handy. So the kids who don't have access to those sounds auditorily, you can give them a cue as well. So I have been cueing with one hand and then duck hands with the other hand to maintain that left to right information as well. I haven't used cued articulation with my younger kids, but I have used it with my high school kids just to give them that little bit of extra information. Okay, just making sure I've covered everything. Okay, next one. Just a few ideas for promoting phonemic awareness every day. The examples I've provided here are for younger kids, but they very easily can be adapted to use with older kids. Okay, so in a hat or a bag, each session I have a different toy, a different item in the bag that the kids can't see. So So what's in the hat today, or what's in the bag today? Okay, it's and then the kids have to identify that, blend the sounds together and say duck. I also use a lot of this segmentation with instructions as well. So sit on the or I've played Simon Says type games with it, using the segmenting the instructions. Give this to and with the segmenting, like I'm slowing it down a little bit for the webinar, but in real life, when working with a kid, I wouldn't separate it so much. I wouldn't go uck. I just go uck and put it together actually quite quickly. And I'm doing this with a 2.5-year-old. So a 2.5-year-old bilateral implants who has great access and is developing age-appropriate listening and speech. She loves this activity. The next one, using stacking rings for colours, sorting items by different colours. Put on the B-U ring. So can they pick up? Of course, they'd have to know their colours first. I don't do this one with the 2.5-year-old. She's not quite there with her colours yet. But, you know, if they've got the concept of colours, you can do that. You can segment them so they can identify them, pick them up, pop it on the stack. So can I have the green ones, please? And you're segmenting that just in simple little instructions. Using animals, for example, if you're working on prepositions, behind, next to, under, over, and you know that the kids understand what a pig is, what a horse is, you know, what a cup is, and you can start segmenting those words. Put the pig next to the horse. So when you segment those, they can put it back together. So if they pick up the pig, put it next to the horse, you know that they've got that skill in phonemic awareness. Another one, using shapes into a board or a cube, you know, your old Tupperware ball to put the shapes in, or peg boards or little boxes with different shapes. Put the red air into the box. So you're just breaking down those sounds so they can hear the differences. Reading books with a lot of rhyme. When Daniel went through the steps, rhyme was one of the very first skills. So Julia Donaldson books are great rhyming books. What the Ladybird Heard or Room on the Broom, they're two of my favourite ones of hers. So it's not that difficult really to quickly put in some phonemic awareness activities into your daily routines, and at any age too. Right, with SSP, they follow a developmental order similar to Jolly Phonics and a lot of other phonics programs, in that they use the SATPIN or SATPIN sounds as the first 6 that they teach. So these are the first 6 monsters. So we've got S is our little pink one, A is the green one, P is the blue, abominable snowman looking one, I, and N is the one with lots of eyes. So it doesn't matter what combinations are used. I've got a set of these which I cut up into cards, and we put them in different order, make up little words. And again, we're still looking at the sounds. So there's not a letter, there's no writing, there's no reading or anything yet involved. And part of the SSP program, like this first stage of phonemic awareness, Emma recommends that on average, if you do this for 4 weeks, 2 hours a day of phonemic awareness practice, then after those 4 weeks of 2 hours a day, the kids are generally ready to move on to phase 2, which is introducing print. So we're talking about school-age kids here. So if you have kids starting kinder, the first part of the program is stage 1. They do that for the first 4 weeks of kinder, for example, and then they've introduced stage 2. So let's have a look. We'll go back to this one. So you can see this cloud here of the first monster. So on each cloud, like I said, they have the sound monster. So when you're doing the phonemic activities with the pictures of the monsters, the kids learn very quickly which sound each of these monsters represent. With the older kids, obviously, you know, monsters might be seen as a bit baby-ish. Emma has used just the IPA symbols. However, she does recommend using the monsters because the IPA symbols are a little too much like print. And kids, she's found some kids do get a little bit confused if they can't separate the IPA symbols from print. So, you know, like a 13, 14-year-old playing with monsters, some of them will, you know, take it as a joke, some not. I've used the monsters with 16 and 17-year-olds and they've been fine. It obviously just depends on the individual, on the kid. I guess you gauge what your kids will be happy to do. So we use those 6 monster cards, we make up words, break them down, and I've had 3-year-olds doing this, I've had 17-year-olds doing this at all levels of, we just work with phonemic awareness. And for the older kids, we talk about it in terms of it being a code. So when we speak, there are different sounds, so it's sort of like a code, and to be able to read and write that code, you have to know it. You have to know what the code is. So for the older kids, you know, we have looked at it in the past as code breaking, code cracking. Yeah. So after they finish phase 1, the phonemic awareness is then embedded into the next 2 phases. So phase 2 has several different activities you can do. There's speedy paired decoding, the mapping videos. One of the other links I've provided at the end is for the monster mapping app. There's an app, it's available on both platforms, and it has the videos in the app that you can watch, 10 to 15 minute videos. The app I think costs about $20. I know the way I've seen schools set it up is the school uses one email address, for example, a Gmail address or a Hotmail address, something like that, and that's their login, so they have the email address and the password. And for each device they put it on, when they log in, they use that same email address and password. So you're only paying the $20 once. And Emma actually, that was her advice, that schools do that. So once schools pay for their SSP membership, and then they can pay for the $20 app, and I've done that. I've paid for the $20 app, and for every iPad in the school that we put it on, we've got an email address and a username that we just sign into. And so our whole team is using the one membership. So, and that has a lot of these activities in it, including the videos. The next one is the coding poster. So SSP have a resource poster. It's a bit bigger than A3, and it has 6 different little activities on it. They're about 2 minutes each. And then there's the Speedy 6 spelling, which is actually my favourite one of these activities. There's 6 little spelling activities that look at phonemic awareness, vocab, some grammar, punctuation, and if you follow through all 6 in a session, it takes about 25 to 40 minutes to run through that. And then they have writing for a purpose and cracking comprehension, so they alternate between those. So for one day they might do writing for a purpose, the next day they do comprehension, and then so on and so forth. And then once a week there's an activity called Speech Sound Pic Detectives. So the kids look at environmental prints, so food packaging, signage, newspapers, and they're given a specific sound to go and look for. And they're given a time, so it might be 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. Here's the pile of resources. So it might be, cereal boxes or other food boxes, and some newspaper articles, and go through that with a highlighter. Highlight every time you see this particular sound, and it can be any combination of letters that represent that sound. So if the sound was T, for example, they could be highlighting any one of these ways to represent a T sound. So that's just a little thing that can be done once a week as part of the phase 2 routine. And then there's phase 3, which is more fluency based. So Emma's research and data collection so far, in New South Wales schools, it's recommended that by the end of kinder, kids should be reading at about a level 9 PM reader. Emma's experience and the data she's been collecting from the teachers that are using SSP, on average by the end of kinder, for the last 4 years of her research, the kids are averaging a level 18 at the end of kinder, because there's such a heavy emphasis on the phonemic awareness part of the program. So, we've known for years and years and years that having a good phonemic awareness knowledge is essential to developing great literacy. And this program and the research that Emma's been collecting from the people implementing this program so far has been proving that correct, that a program with a heavy emphasis of phonemic awareness is, showing results, showing good results. So with phase 1, as I said, first 4 weeks of kinder, then phase 2, working through the other levels. So there are 4 levels: the green, purple, yellow and blue. And by the end of blue, you get through all of the phonemes. And Emma, on average, says that, again, with her research, that kids by the end of year 1 should have finished blue level, and then moving into year 2 should be reading and then developing through phase 3 through their fluency and reading for pleasure. So you can probably tell I can't speak highly enough of this program. I just love it. And for our deaf and hard of hearing kids, it really gives them a way to focus in on those different sounds with the phonemic awareness, and not just give them a book with a word that they may or may not have seen before and be able to break down or decode that word. The other thing that SSP does with their print is they have black and grey, black and grey, black and grey, which you may have seen something similar with the THRAS program. They use different colours in their sounds as well. But what SSP does is it's by sounds, whereas the THRAS program for a blend, for example, like the word blend, B-L-E-N-D, their BL will be one colour, and then the E, and then the N, and then the D, and then the S. Whereas SSP would have the B and L different colours because they are different phonemes, they're different sounds. So with my training as a teacher of the deaf with audiology, and knowing that, there are 44 phonemes and that English is a spoken language primarily that we then learn to read and write, this program just seemed to fit. And becoming a member of the SSP website and reading all of Emma's comments and research and everything. I just, yeah, okay, I wanted to give it a go, and I have. So for the last year and a half, I have been using it with my kids of varying ages, and I've had a fair amount of success, and a couple of other people on my team have also decided to use the program and are liking it as well. So it's still very early days. The program doesn't have a lot of statistical information yet, but what there is very, very positive, and I just love it. So I'm happy for you guys to email me or get in contact with me through EDSA. They're the links that I was talking about. So the first one is monster mapping. It actually shows you a video of the routine, the monster mapping routine with the duck hands and everything. The second one has the app information. The third one is the Speech Sound King's story, which is it's a cute little story that introduces kids to the whole idea of speech sounds, and that there's a whole world of speech sounds and the speech sound cloud land, and why we needed to have a code and to send messages to each other. So it's a really good little video to look at. And then the last one there is the cute articulation, Jane Passey's cute articulation link from YouTube. So that's it for me, guys. If you want to email me, it's my veronica.bengough@det.nsw.edu.au, as it always is. Thank you for your time today. I hope you've enjoyed it.